When the Brahmaputra left a bare sandbar in Assam, Jadav Payeng looked across the empty riverland and somehow saw the beginning of a forest. Majuli is a river island in northeast India, beautiful, flat, and fragile, and constantly argued over by one of the world's most restless rivers. The Brahmaputra does not politely stay between lines. Each monsoon, it can flood, chew at banks, abandon sand, and redraw the map like it has editorial authority.
By the late 1970s, one sandbar near Kokilamuk had become hot, empty, and treeless, a place where even shade had packed up and resigned. In 1979, Payeng, then a teenager in the way the story is usually told, came across reptiles that had been washed onto the bare sand after floods and died in the heat. He asked what could save animals from that kind of sun, and the answer he heard was simple enough to sound insulting: plant bamboo.
So he planted a small group of bamboo seedlings, because apparently the first draft of a forest can look like a handful of green sticks arguing with a desert. The sensible thing would have been to stop there, accept the sandbar as sandbar, and let nature file its complaint with nobody in particular. Payeng did not stop. He returned again and again with saplings, seeds, and a stubborn patience of a person who has decided that empty land is not a permanent diagnosis.
The sandbar fought back, not dramatically, just practically. Heat, flood, loose soil, grazing animals, and the daily problem of water being everywhere and still not where the new plants needed it. He watered young trees, protected them, and waited through seasons when success looked less like a forest and more like one fragile leaf refusing to quit. He later tried a strange-sounding trick, carrying red ants to the sandbar because he believed they helped change the soil. That is the kind of detail that makes the story feel real, because no motivational poster ever warns you that reforestation may involve ant logistics. Year after year, bamboo took hold, then other trees followed, and the bare sand began to collect shade. Shade changed the rules. Cooler soil held more moisture, leaves dropped, roots knitted the ground, and the sandbar started acting less like a wound. The work was not one grand cinematic montage. It was daily repetition, the least glamorous technology humans have, and somehow still one of the most powerful. Payeng came from the Mising community and lived close to the river's moods, so he knew the Brahmaputra was not scenery, but an active force in people's lives. Around Majuli, erosion had already swallowed large pieces of land, and National Geographic notes that the island had lost more than half its landmass since 1917. A tree was not just a tree there. It was shade, soil, roots, bird habitat, flood resistance, and a small vote against the river taking everything at once. For years, almost nobody outside the area understood what was happening. There was no ceremonial ribbon, no viral thread, no drone shot with inspirational music. There was just a man on a sandbar doing the least efficient-looking thing imaginable, one plant at a time, until inefficiency started to become a forest.
The place became known as Molai Katoni, or Molai's Woods, after Payeng's nickname Molai. Slowly, the forest stopped needing imagination to see it. It had bamboo, arjun, koroi, flame-colored trees, cotton trees, and the messy architecture of real life. Then animals began to arrive, because wildlife has a very practical sense of good real estate. Deer came, rabbits came, monkeys and birds came, and eventually the story grew large enough to include elephants, rhinoceroses, and even Bengal tigers. Imagine planting for shade and accidentally opening an entire neighborhood for creatures with much larger opinions than yours. In 2008, forest officials reportedly learned the scale of the place when elephants moved into the trees, which is a very Assam way for paperwork to discover a forest.
By then, the former sandbar was no longer an idea. Sources describe Molai Forest as roughly 1,360 acres, or about 550 hectares. That is larger than New York's Central Park, which is a strange comparison only because Central Park had committees, money, architects, and fewer monsoon tendrils. Payeng's forest also made him a guardian, because creating habitat means defending it from fires, poachers, encroachment, and people who look at green life and see only property. When poachers threatened animals, he alerted officials. When cattle were lost to predators, he blamed shrinking wild spaces, not the animals forced into them. That part matters, because the story is not about one man conquering nature. It is about one man understanding that humans are supposed to negotiate with it. Recognition eventually came. Jawaharlal Nehru University honored him as the Forest Man of India in 2012, and India awarded him the Padma Shri in 2015.
But medals are a late chapter in a story like this. Forests do not grow because somebody claps. They grow because somebody keeps showing up before the applause knows where to stand. Payeng kept planting, kept tending, and kept speaking about trees as if they were not a hobby but a kind of duty. He wanted children to plant, governments to protect river islands, and people to understand that a forest is not a decoration but a living machine that makes survival possible.
The most cinematic part may be the least visible, years when nothing seemed to happen, while roots secretly prepared the plot twist. A teenager's first bamboo seedlings became a canopy became a habitat, and a habitat became proof that restoration is not magic, just patience with dirty hands. The Brahmaputra still floods, erodes, changes course, and ignores human confidence with excellent consistency.
But on one sandbar in Assam, Jadav Payeng made the river share space with a forest, and that may be the most oddly human kind of miracle. One person, one tree, then another, until emptiness loses track of the argument.